Hey, what's up, Bliss fam? This is Adam coming at you with another wheel class. So, you need a wheel, you need a mat, that's about it. So if you've taken this class with me, especially here, but in general, play your ludicrous, get on it. All right, so grab your wheel, we're gonna roll out our backs. Today we're gonna focus on some core stuff and some spine. So really just getting the body moving. So grab your wheel, bring the wheel to the middle of your back, about right between the shoulder blades, hands out wide. All right, so support the body, slowly press into the heels, lift your hips. All right, come off the ground, take a couple breaths here, let the chest open up, and let the head drop back as feels comfortable for you. All right, so you're creating some security here that the wheel is going to be able to hold you. You can open up through the chest. All right, and then once you start to feel a little openness here, you're going to find some movement. So pull the wheel up towards the back of your neck, and then press the wheel, and then go all the way down towards the lower back. And do that a couple times. Go up and down through the spine. Take your time. Take about 4 or 5 passes, I would say. Iron out all those kinks in the spine. If you have a wheel at home, just doing this on a daily basis, just for about a minute, if you can do that, is just divine. So have fun with that. All right, so you can stay here working on the spine. If you want to involve the shoulders, which is something we will also do today, we're going to work into full camel today. So involving the shoulders, we'll reach the hands up over the head, grab the wheel. So we're grabbing either side of the wheel. Hands on the, fingers on the inside, thumbs on the outside, elbows squeeze in next to the ears. And then we'll start to walk the elbows towards the ground. All right, so maybe the elbows come towards the ground, maybe they touch. If not, either way, it's a nice big stretch. The heels walk in towards the hips while we come in, so we stabilize through the base. I'm taking a few breaths here. Nice big full breaths. Just about another 10 or 15 seconds. All right, and then today we're going to end in a supported bridge pose. So bring your shoulders down to the mat. So we want the shoulders taking the weight here. So walk your feet in as much as you need to. And bring your shoulders to the mat. Arms can spread out wide to help separate some of the weight. All right, now the knees are bent. And we're starting to put some pressure into our SI joint here. All right, and if this doesn't feel good, you can come out of this. And if this feels okay, we're going to be here for about another 10 seconds. And as much as you can, try to relax your lower back into the wheel so you feel that nice pressure up into your SI joint. And keep your balance. You can separate the feet a little wider if you're feeling a little wobbly. Just one more breath. All right, now we're going to slowly make our way out of this. So pull your heels in. You're going to bring the shoulders off the mat. Wheel rolls all the way down through the spine. Hips hit the mat. Keep the knees bent. And we'll grab the front of the shins, pull ourselves forward. All right, then grab for opposite elbows. Tuck your chin to your chest. And then start to round your spine in the opposite direction we've been going. And take a few breaths here. Really breathe through your upper back. Feel the opening, separation between the shoulder blades. Just one more breath. Bring the gaze up. All right, so we're going to come right into a plank here. So we're going to be doing this quite a bit where we open up the spine, create a lot of openness, and then we're going to re-engage the core to find that stability, so get the integrity back. Okay, so with the plank, you're going to have an option for using the wheel. The wheel not only adds a bit of intensity to your core, but it also adds stability. So you have that ability to move left or right, move your feet off the wheel, so there's a lot more precariousness that goes along with this. So with that, you have the option to take your modified plank, knees on the ground, your traditional plank with the feet on the ground, or if you want to have this challenge with our forearm or with our wheel, bring the tops of your feet to the wheel. All right, hug the wheel into towards the shins. Top of the feet are still pressing in. Now engaging through the shoulders and the hands first. Feel the strength of your fingertips. Now from there, we're going to engage, lift the hips, slowly push the wheel back. All right, and then we start to set this up. So 30 seconds, squeeze the fingertips, knees can be down, traditional plank, or you're taking this wheel plank. I don't have my watch on me, so 30 seconds, we'll figure that out. All right, so keep the hips slightly lifted, pull the navel into your spine, right, kind of knit the ribs in. So little tuck of the hips, not so much that you're coming up with the hips, but just that little tuck of the hips to keep the shoulders and the hips in line. So let's say about 10 more seconds here. Keep the glutes engaged, navel into spine, take one more breath. All right, drop your knees to the ground first. All right, we'll sit back on the heels. Bring the wheel out in front of us. So we're gonna move into melting heart. So part of our camel pose, like I mentioned earlier, we're gonna be working into. So we need to work on the shoulders, back bends, and hip flexors. Main areas that we're working on today, involving the core as well. So for our melting heart, it's gonna be a 3-part melting heart, involving each individual shoulder first, and then we'll do both together. So find your stability here, about 30 seconds on each side, and then about 30 seconds in the middle. The wheel adds a lot of intensity to this stretch, or has the ability to. So just be careful. If the wheel is too much for you, you always leave the wheel off to the side, and you just take something that feels more appropriate for your flexibility. All right. So right hand on top of the wheel. Melting heart. So knees about hip distance apart or a little bit closer. So just feeling it out. But you want to keep the hips really high on top of the knees, not back by the heels like our child's pose. So really high with the hips. We're going to use this left hand to guide our body down, right hand on top of the wheel. All right, and we're going to feel out how deep we can go here. So if your forehead does not come down to the mat, where you can find a little bit of relaxation here, if you have to kind of use your left hand here, that's totally fine. So use that left hand and let that be your guide. As you start to open up, so already 10 seconds into this, as you start to open up, your right shoulder will release and the armpit's going to drop down a little bit more. All right, but don't completely release out of that right arm. You keep the top of the right arm engaged and just let the right armpit drop down. And if your forehead does come all the way down to the ground, same kind of idea. Engage the top of the right shoulder and just gently start to push down into the armpit. Let's take one more breath. All right, using your left hand, slowly release, press up. All right, and we're going to switch sides. Wheel off to the left. Right hand is now your guide. Left hand on top of the wheel. You'll readjust your hips if you need to. If you want to keep the hips high, press into your right hand, extend your left arm, engage the top of your left shoulder, and then we're going to slowly come down again. So remember, go to your depth. You're holding on with the right hand for your little stability there. Just feel that out. Either way, keep the top of your left shoulder engaged. Push down into the left armpit. And take 10 more seconds here. Stay with your breath. Big, deep breaths. Inhales, finding length in the body. And then exhales, the gentle pressure, just to find some more depth. Take one more breath like that. Inhale, lengthen. On the exhale, gently pressing down into that left armpit. And then release, press up. All right, and we'll take both arms now. So both hands on top of the wheel. So this time we don't have a hand to guide ourselves down, right? So this is an opportunity to where it might become too intense, where you might lose the wheel, or stay into it and just keep engaged and see how deep you can take the chest. All right, so both hands on top of the wheel, engage to the shoulders. We're gonna slowly drop the chest down and trying to keep the hips right on top of the knees as we come down. All right, now if your forehead does not touch the mat, really engage the shoulders and let the chest drop down. If your forehead does come down to the mat, you can start to bring the gaze forward. If I do, the mic's gonna get all staticky, so I won't do that. But try to press your sternum down towards the ground. A big, big stretch. About 10 more seconds here. Big, deep breaths. Take one more like that. Big inhale, find some length in the body. And then a gentle press down on the exhale. And this time we're going to release, come all the way back, hips to heels, moving into embryo pose. So let your chest rest on top of your thighs, arms reach down beside us, forehead down towards the mat, and take a big rest and release for your shoulders. If you want, you can find a gentle rock side to side. And take 2 more breaths here. Breath in. Exhale. Now, if you find any movement, pause here in center, and then gently start to lift all the way up. All right, so next we're going to move into side bends, right? So we're going to work on the side spine. So what I want you to think about is your Ardha Chandrasana half moon from your Hatha practice, right? So you find that nice lateral side bends with the spine. So we're going to work on that, but with the wheel, with the support of the wheel, okay? So come to the back of your mat, grab your wheel. You're going to bring the wheel into your right hip. Okay, so bring the wheel right into the hip. Okay, we're going to open up through this right side. So even though we're going to lay this right side of our ribs down on top of the wheel, we still want to stay open here. And that's one of those things in that pose, in our Ardha Chandrasana, even though we're hinging to that right side, or whichever side we're hinging to, we still want to find openness there, right? So we don't want to just completely collapse in. We want to create that openness. And so that's why I love this pose for that. As we're going to gently lay our right ribs down on the ground, or onto the wheel, and then bring the right hand down. Okay, so we're starting off right here. Left arm comes up and over. All right, and we'll find a few breaths. Gaze can shift up. Now you can stay exactly here. If you want to add some more intensity to this, start to extend the left leg long. All right, now again, stay right there. Or if you want to add a little bit more, gaze down first, because that'll stabilize your balance. And then we'll start to extend the right leg out below us. And now remember, you are on a wheel, so this adds a little bit more precariousness to it. All right, find your balance. Gaze where your gaze takes you. And take 2 more breaths here. Try to stay as long as you can on the top side of your body. Let those right ribs rest into the wheel. Take 1 more big breath. All right, then we're going to slowly unpack this, okay? So I like to bring my left hand down first and start to create stability. Bring the right knee in first. I guess that'd be second. All right, next we'll bring our left knee in, create the base, slowly come up, and we'll take right into a counter stretch. Left arm down, right arm up. Stretch out that right side. Find some openness in between the ribs. Take 2 more breaths. All right, and then we'll come up. All right, second side. So move to the opposite side of your mat, or just turn around. Oh, this is going to get weird. I have a microphone thing here. Pardon the interruption. All right, now we're at the left side of our mat. All right, so wheel into our left hip. We're going to stay open with this left lung, left ribs. All right, and gently start to lay our left side down. Scoop down the mat just a bit. All right, and then bringing the gaze down, right arm comes up and over, and just start to feel the openness in the right side of the body. A couple breaths here, breathing into the right ribs. All right, now your option to stay there. If you want to add a little bit more, start to straighten the right leg. All right, adding a little bit more weight into your left side, but lengthening through the right side. All right, now same option, stay there, or shift your gaze down just to create some stability. And then we'll slowly sneak that left leg long. Remember the whole adage of being on a wheel. And then it'll take about 10 more seconds here. Try to stay open with that right shoulder. Big, nice, big breaths. 1 more time, breath in. Exhale. All right, shift the gaze down, recreate your base. Left leg comes in, right knee comes. Gently start to bring the hips back to your heels. Press into the left hand. We'll take that counter stretch. Gaze down if that feels good. Press into your left hip. And release, come back to center. All right, so let's get some integrity back into the core. So we're going to do another plank version with the wheel. So the wheel is always optional, remember that. So if you do not want to take the version that we're going to do with the wheel, just take a traditional plank, knees down or up, whichever one felt best on the other side. With this version of plank, we're going to have some movement. We're going to bring the knees into the chest. So with this version, it's best to bring the wheel a little more up onto the shins than towards the feet. You want to create a runway so you have enough room that the wheel is going to slide down your feet and while you bring your knees into your chest. Okay, right? So getting into that, hands underneath the shoulders, feet on top of the wheel, kind of like how we started last time, and then we lift up. All right, now this time, bring the wheel to about the middle of your shins. All right, take some maneuver in there. All right, press into the hands, engage your core. All right, now stay there, take a breath in. And on the exhale, bend the knees and bring the knees into your chest, rolling the feet on top of the wheel. Don't lose the integrity of the shoulders. Inhale, extend it back. That extension back is very, very questionable at times. Exhale, bring it in. You got to be very careful. Press it back. It's about 10 more seconds here. Take 2 more. If you're staying in your plank, exhales, press up. Open through those shoulder blades. Take 1 more breath. Extend it back, drop your knees, and feet off the wheel, and we'll sit back on the hips. Okay, so now we're going to work into the hips a little bit more, getting into a 2-part lizard pose. So let's bring the wheel by our left leg, underneath our left shin, and underneath our left foot. All right, foot's going to step to the outside of our right pinky finger, and step to the outside. A lot of times we step too far in and we create tension on the ankle by sinking deep, and then the knee just opens up arbitrarily. We don't purposefully open it. So walk your foot out to the right as much as you can. Just we try to have the right knee right on top of your right ankle. All right, so we're going to start and take some time here. So first part, stay up on your hands. Maybe take a couple breaths here and move side to side. Start to move some of that synovial fluid around that we're creating. Now you can stay right here, or if you know you can find a little more depth, come down 1 elbow at a time. So that second elbow, that inside elbow closest to your right knee, that's going to be the one that is going to add a lot more intensity. So left one comes down, right hand can stay right there, or if you know you can get down there, bring the right elbow down, and then find some movement. Taking about 3 breaths in between each adding of intensity or changing of the pose. All right, so staying there, or last little bit, hands come off side to side, a little wider than shoulder width, just so the elbows stack right on top of the wrists. Now, you don't have any arms in the way, you can start to drop the chest down and find a little more depth. Gaze slightly ticking forward, finding movement if that felt good on the other side. So really working on this right hip, right groin. One more breath. All right, now let's come back up to our hands. All right, re-establish your base. Hands back underneath the shoulders, strong into the fingers, forearms engaged, press into the hands, feel the back engage. And now we're going to involve that back leg, lift your left knee off the mat, and now we come into a more active lizard pose. So still pressing into the hands, left glute can engage. So think about the shoulders when we were doing our melting heart earlier. Shoulders engaged so the armpits can drop down. So really engage that left glute so your hip flexor can start to drop down. Now we have 10 more seconds. You can stay on the hands. If you know you want more depth, come down to your elbows. Just take your time. 2 more breaths. All right, if you were on your elbows, come back up to your hands. All right, let's release that back knee. All right, step the knees together, sit back on the heels, and just releasing any tension in the hips. A little rock back and forth. If you have any tension in your hip flexors, we just did a lot of opening here. You know, strong palm it, move it into your hands, into your hips, and just get a little tension worked out. All right, second side lizard pose. Wheel behind the right shin and underneath the right foot, and our left foot to the outside of our left pinky finger. Now walk it out far enough so you're not creating that tension on your ankle. All right, and create your base, take your time. Hands underneath the shoulders, engage, press into them. then start to feel the hips drop. All right, and if you know you want to take a little bit more depth, remember, take that outside elbow down first. See how that feels. And now that inside one, so that left elbow for this side, is going to be a little bit more intense. So if you want to take a couple breaths, see how that feels. You know, we have to conquer the world one pose at a time. Take your time. Left elbow down. All right, and then if you took the, I like to call the Spider-Man arms, bring the hands out to the side, drop your chest down, move a little side to side. Just find your breath. The inhale's lengthening. Exhale's drop your whole chest down. One more breath. All right, and then come back up to your hands first. Got to reestablish the base. Strong into your hands, press into your hands, engage your arms. And now we start to lift. Oops. Start to lift our back leg. There we go. Back knee off the mat. All right, find some breath here. Engage your right glute, drop your right hip down. If you took the journey down to your elbows, find that little path. 10 more seconds. Steady breath. One more breath. All right, come back up to your hands first. All right, let's drop our back knee. Step the knees together. And come back to your hips. Crescent moon. All right, so still working on the hips, adding a little bit more into the back bends. So we did a lot of warming up earlier with the spine, with our warm-up. So now we're going to work into the back bends a little bit more. All right, so we got the hip flexors open, a little bit of mobility in our hips, lateral spines feeling nice. So coming into crescent moon pose. So I like to have a really long, low lunge here. So back knee is pretty far back, right leg is forward. Okay, so I have the wheel behind my right calf, underneath my right hip. But what I'm looking for is stability in the hips. All right, so this where the wheel is right here doesn't feel good for you, roll the wheel back more towards your right hip. All right, so just finding stability in the hip. I like to sink the hips pretty deep in these poses, so that's why I like the wheel forward. So just play around with that, feel it out for yourself. All right, now left hip, this back hip needs to stay stable, right? So push forward through your left hip. You can curl the back toes to push forward. You can press into your left glute to press forward, whatever feels good. But think about it like a screw top. The back hip needs to come forward and the front hip needs to go back. All right, so left hip forward, right hip back. All right, now from here, lengthening through the spine, pressing into our front knee, start to find length in the spine. So as we're lengthening the spine, we're still pressing that left hip forward. So lots of integrity happening. All right, now from here, we're going to lift the arms up. Finding our crescent moon pose, pinky fingers rock in towards one another. So arms can stay long, gaze can lift up. A couple options for back bends. You can start to bend the elbows and squeeze the shoulder blades together. Again, still make sure that left hip is tracking forward. If you want to involve the arms a little bit more, the arms can get long above the head and be used as leverage. Framing the ears, still pinky fingers rock in towards one another. Left hip is tracking forward. We're lifting on the inhale and coming back on our exhales. Now, personally, I like to interlace my fingers, draw the biceps back by the ears. And the interlacing of the fingers gives you leverage, something to pull up and back on. So you have the weight of the arms plus the leverage of the hands. All right, so we got about another 20 seconds. And so finding your best version of back bends here. Taking about 3 breaths in those back bends and taking a rest for about 3 breaths. Stabilize the hips. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, come back. 2 more times like that. Inhale. Exhale. 1 more breath in. Exhale. And slowly release. Inhales bring us all the way up. Hands come down. Let's lose the wheel. And we'll move into a half split to Ardha Hanuman for a counter pose. So wheel moves off to the side. Straighten that front leg. And try to think about this as more of a reversal for your back bend than a hamstring opener. So the gaze can start to come down towards your left knee, maybe coming all the way in towards your navel. 2 more breaths. All right, change, come forward. And then step the knees back together. And we'll move to the other side. Left leg forward, right knee back. And just remember where you have the wheel placement on the other side. So if you like the wheel kind of wedged between the back of the calf and the hamstring, or if you rather prefer the wheel back by your hip. All right, stabilize. Get that right knee kind of back there. We want to work on this right hip flexor a little bit more. All right, now we're coming up. Take some time here. Figure out your hips. Right hip forward, left hip back this time. Remember that screw top analogy. So whether the toes were tucked last time or you just have the engagement of your hips, whatever that is, feel the right hip push forward and feel that left hip start to push back. All right, nice and stable. Both hands start to press into your front knee. Lengthen the body. All right, push your right hip forward. You'll start to feel it opening in your hip flexor. So lots of work we do in these hip flexors in these classes. All right, now involving the arms, start to lift the arms in towards the ceiling. Keep the hips stable. Gaze starts to shift up. Take about 2 more breaths here. Engage your right glute. Feel the left hip start to pull back. And then we'll start our back bends. If you start it with the bent elbows, bend your elbows. Take a few breaths there, 3 or 4 breaths. Squeeze through the shoulder blades. Let that squeeze push the chest up. Inhales, lift through the sternum. Exhale, squeeze the shoulder blades. If you took the arms long, bring the arms long, frame in the ears, pinky fingers rock in towards each other. We're using that as our weight. If you interlace the fingers, go ahead and interlace the fingers. 20 more seconds. Think about lifting up on the inhales. Keep the right hip tracking forward. Exhales, engage, and start to come back. 2 more breaths like that. Lengthen up on the inhale. Exhale, come back. 1 more time up. Inhale. Exhale back. Change, inhale forward. Let's bring our hands all the way down to the mat. Frame the left foot. Ardha Hanuman. Remove the wheel. And set back. Straighten the front leg. Slowly work your gaze down towards your right knee. And if you took the gaze all the way in towards your hip, let's move your gaze in. 2 more breaths. All right, let's change, come forward. And then we'll sit back on the hips, knees together. Big breath in. Exhale. Last little bit in the core. So we're going to work into a one-legged plank and the option to bring the free knee in towards the elbow. So again, this is adding a lot more stability with the wheel. So feel this out. You can do it without the wheel and just bring the knee into the elbow. If you use the wheel, again, you have that side-to-side stability issue. So not issue, but thing we're working on. All right, so we're going to work on this with, I'm going to show this with the wheel. If you don't want to use the wheel, just doing what I'm doing, but without the wheel, okay? So I'm going to start with the wheel underneath the right leg, hands underneath the shoulders, pressing into my left leg first. All right, so this is actually a little bit easier to come into. All right, now we start to lift the right knee off the mat, and now we have some time to actually make sure this is stable. All right, so once that's all nice and good, lift your left leg off the mat, hands press in. All right, now staying right there, or bring your left knee in towards your left elbow, tap your elbow, and inhale, bring it back. Exhale, bring it in. Let's do 4 more. Inhale, lengthen. Exhale, bring it in. Keep pressing into the hands. Feel open in the shoulder blades. Knee to elbow on the exhale. We got 2 more. Inhale. Exhale. Try to bring the gaze forward. Look at the top edge of the mat 1 more time. Lengthen, inhale. Exhale, bring it in. Bring the foot back first. Release the foot. Release the knee. Second side. All right, let's bring the wheel off to our left. left leg on top of the wheel. So same kind of setup. Right toes back, hands underneath the shoulders. All right, come into our, let's bring the knee off the mat. All right, then lift the right leg off the mat. Stabilize. Breath in, knee to elbow on the exhale. All right, inhale, lengthen. Exhale, bring it in. Do 4 more. Inhale. Keep constant pressure into the hands, opening up through the shoulders. Squeeze to the fingertips. Navel holes in the spine. 2 more. Last one. Inhale. Exhale. Lengthen first. Drop the foot. Let the knee come down. And then we'll remove the wheel and sit back on the hips. All right, so lots of work for the wrists. Rock out the wrists. All right, so last few poses, the next 2 poses, we're going to work on our wheel and forearm wheel. All right, so getting ready for the back bends involving the shoulders, getting ready for our full camel. All right, so full wheel is more or less a gymnastics back bend. Love doing it with the wheel because it gives you the lift off the ground already. So a lot of times we have a lot of problems getting our shoulders off the ground in full wheel pose because we start from like more or less a negative resistance. So starting with our back already lifted, it's more ability for our shoulders to stay engaged. Okay, so let's come on to our wheel. Let's move the microphone one more time. Okay, so bringing the wheel, the middle of the shoulder blades. Take a deep breath in. Exhale. All right, now hands on either side. Slowly press into the wheel. So just like our warm-up, bring the wheel right back into the middle of the back. All right, now this time we're going to bring the hands on top or overhead. All right, about shoulder width apart, maybe just a little outside of your shoulder width. All right, now walk the heels in towards the hips. So be careful. As you start to lift up, the wheel might shoot out from under you, right? So just be careful where the wheel ends up. Might not be there when you come back. All right, so exhale. And on the inhale, slowly press into the hands. Lift your body off the wheel. And take a few breaths here. So this is a really nice warm-up for your shoulders and starting to get a little bit more into your back bend. So a few breaths and we'll come back down. Hopefully that wheel's there. If not, chase it down. We're going to take one more set. So coming back into it. You'll find your position with the hands, shoulder width apart or just a little outside. Exhale. Inhale, lift up. All right, so now about 10 seconds here. If you want to work on your back bend a little bit more, walk the feet in towards your wrists. All right, so you're walking your feet in, pressing up with the hips, a little bit more intense. Maybe bring the gaze up towards your navel. Take 2 more breaths. All right, now coming back, find your wheel, right there. And then come back onto your hips. All right, so that was our full-on wheel. Next, we're going to move into forearm wheel. So same kind of idea, just moving more into our shoulders. So same kind of idea with our traditional wheel. If you are still working on the strength to get off the wheel, work on that strength. Take your time. If you have the ability to get your back off the wheel or get your elbows to the ground in your forearm wheel, then take that to where you want to take it. Okay? So about a minute full in this forearm wheel pose. Doesn't mean you have to hold it for a minute, but it's just some time to mess around with it. Okay, so to get into this pose, knees hip distance apart, reach up, grab the wheel. All right, elbows squeeze in next to the wheel, or next to your ears, so that's that good rotation for our shoulders, not putting any strain on our rotator cuffs. Okay, so now we're going to press into the heels, lift up, and walk the heels in. Okay, this is where you have to feel out your own practice. If your elbows do not touch the ground and this is a really intense stretch, then stay right here and just work on that stretch. If you can bring your elbows to the ground, bring the elbows to the ground, and then just start to make some choices. All right, stay right there. Keep the elbow squeeze in towards your ears, but also pressing into the mat. A few breaths. All right, now stay there, or you can press into the heels and lift your shoulders off the wheel. Keep your hands on the wheel, and we'll find our forearm wheel. So this is really starting to get into the shoulders more, opening up the upper back, and working into our camel pose that we're going to get into in just a moment. Just one more breath. And slowly bring your shoulders back to the wheel, and we'll take our hips back down towards the ground. Release the wheel, come forward. All right. And at any point in time, if you need to take a little break, take a little break. And sit up nice and straight. And take a big breath in. Big exhale. Great. So all that openness that we've just created is going to give us an opportunity to find some depth in our full camel pose. This is also, some people refer to this as full pigeon. I guess it decides on what side of the track you're from, I guess. But so whichever one you call it, we're going to call it a full pigeon or full camel pose. So this is a really nice back bend, and there's a lot of support in this back bend. So we're going to come onto our wheel, feet hip distance apart, knees bent, shins on the ground. Okay, so the shins are on the ground. We're going to keep the hips down on the ground, or down towards the ground to start us off. Now the wheel is going to start between our shoulder blades, or pretty high up our back. The higher up the wheel is on the back, the less intense the back bend is, quote unquote. The farther down towards the hips, the more intense it starts to become. Okay, so just feel that out. Find your own intensity. Okay, so we're going to start with the wheel more up towards the shoulder blades. Reaching up, grabbing the wheel, just like we did with our forearm wheel we took earlier. Elbow squeeze in next to the ears. All right, so we want to keep the elbow squeezed in. Don't let them flare out. Let your head come back. All right, now this is a good start. Now if that felt okay, you stay right there. Engage your glutes, lift your hips. All right, if you know that you want a little bit more, slowly release the hips, release the wheel, come up. We'll slide the wheel down about an inch. Reposition it, come back up. Make sure we can grab the wheel. Elbow squeeze it next to the ears. There we go, a little bit more depth. The elbows come down, closer to the ground. All right, then take your time. Take about 3 breaths in each variation that you go into. Slowly working your way a little bit deeper if you want to. Finding the depth that feels good for you, place where you want to stay. All right, about 3 breaths. Your 3 breaths. Coming back out. Eventually finding the version that feels best for your practice. Gives you a challenge. That's whatever feels good for you. About 10 more seconds here. Keep the glutes engaged, hips pressing up. Just one more breath. Slowly release. And we'll work our way all the way back up. Keep the core engaged as you come up. All right, then bring the knees together. We'll come right into an embryo pose. Let your chest rest on top of your thighs. Arms release down by the sides. Forehead to the ground. And we'll find a few breaths here. Just rest exactly on. Take some big deep breaths. And the next inhale, slowly change, rise up. All right, let's bring the wheel off to the side. I think we're done with the wheel for the day. All right, so come onto your backs. And bring your knees into your chest. I've done a lot for the spine. We've moved the spine in all different directions. So let's try to find some just length and straightness to the spine. So knees come into the chest. They can come to the outside of the torso, just more like a reclined frog. Little tuck of the chin to lengthen your neck, and then try to roll your lower back down to the ground. So try to get as much of your vertebrae on the ground as you can. breath in. Big exhale. All right, bring both knees into the chest. Arms extend out wide. I'm just going to take a couple final twists. So bring both knees into the chest. I'm going to drop both knees off to your left, gaze over to your right. Two more breaths. And slight engagement to the core, change, come back to center. Squeeze knees into the chest. Take a breath. And then we'll take our second side, arms extend out wide. Let's drop the knees off to the right, gaze to your left. And if there's a different twist you want to take whatever twist feels best for you in your practice. Gaze whatever direction feels best. And stay with your intentional breaths. Let's take two more together. Inhale. Exhale. One more time. Breath in. Exhale. And change back to center. Square the hips, squeeze the knees. And take one more breath in. And on your exhale, release, legs long, arms to your sides, final Shavasana. Don't take as much time in here as you need. Find your breath, find your relaxation. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Namaste.